Good evening and welcome to Global Perspectives on MTV Sports. Tonight we're staying close to home with a focus on India. This past week, India had a proud moment when it successfully test-fired the long-range Agni-5 ballistic missile that can carry a nuclear warhead to locations at a distance of around 5,000 kilometers. That means the missile could reach cities like Beijing and Shanghai, finally giving India deterrent capability against China. Tonight on Global Perspectives, we're going to take a look at how India's new defense capabilities will affect the geopolitical dynamics within the Asian region. Will the arms race between China and India develop into a new Cold War? And what kind of an impact will that have on other countries in Asia? All that and more coming up on Global Perspectives tonight.
Both India and China maintain a no-first-use policy when it comes to nuclear power. That means both countries have committed not to be the first party in conflict to use nuclear weapons. But the successful integration of the Agni-5 will make India's defense apparatus significantly more powerful. In the first report, we take a closer look at India's defense policy and how it may change with this new development.
From about the 1960s until the 1990s, most of India's attention on nuclear policy focused on whether or not India should develop nuclear weapons and not so much on what the weapons should be used for. The nation's pursuit of nuclear weapons was more out of necessity rather than eagerness to be a nuclear power. Some early nuclear strategists argued against having the type of large nuclear arsenals that the United States or the former Soviet Union had. Instead, they promoted a small arsenal that could be used as deterrents. In other words, nuclear weapons would serve more of a political purpose than a military one. India's nuclear security policy has been described by some experts as cautious activism, and it has evolved in a gradual manner rather than a dramatic change. Analysts expect the trend to continue even while India continues to develop its nuclear capability. While the latest missile test has put the Indo-China relations into the spotlight, some analysts say India's nuclear policy is guided more by its relations and tensions with Pakistan rather than China. For example, the development of the Agni-5 has been known for some time, so China has had time to take the necessary measures in its defense policy. And China is still superior when it comes to nuclear capability. However, from the Indian perspective, Pakistan is considered to be an irresponsible nuclear power, especially since it has not yet officially committed to a no-first-use policy. Reporting for Global Perspectives, I'm Kumarini Rajakarna from the News First International Desk.
To Mr. Prashant Gunaratne, a lecturer in international relations at the University of Colombo. In the first part of our conversation tonight, we talk more about what factors motivate Indian defense policy. A quick question about, we're talking about Indian foreign policy. The first thing that comes to mind is the recent developments that we've seen with China and India and this whole debate of a nuclear war struggle that could happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but they talk about it. Can you give our viewers a little update on what's taken place so far?
Well, first of all, to start with, I must say that I didn't find anything fascinating with regard to the recent missile test carried out by the Indians. And we must understand the real ground situation in India to analyze the foreign policy aspects. Well, all of us are familiar with 2G scams. Anna Hazare's name is almost have become a household name. General Singh has already submitted a letter to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh disclosing the inferiority complex of the Indian military. And we are also knowledgeable about the widespread corruption in Indian politics and recent domestic failures when it comes to regional elections. So I would rather interpret the missile test carried out by the Indian government as a facade covering up all the incompetencies of the government. When it comes to the foreign policy aspects, I would not rather say that the Indians are in a confrontational path with the Chinese. Well, today Indian foreign policy is mainly pro-Western, backed by the United States and almost all the NATO allies. But still maintaining cordial relations with the Chinese. As an example, the Indians were conducting joint military exercises in 2007 together with the Chinese. And they're having strong trade and military ties with each other to support the fact that, to support those facts, I would like to add on that there are strong trade and energy deals struck between those two countries. So they're not confrontational, but they're having a cordial relation between each other.
So what you're saying is more of downplaying of what happened. But the Chinese also said that these missiles, nuclear weapons, were kind of pointed towards China, but they were not taking it seriously because Indian systems were no match for the Chinese defense systems. Now in that, it seems like a little bit of macho display by both these giants trying to pander to their constituents and their communities. Is that what you see as well?
Yes, I would very much agree with your fact. It's reasonable for the Chinese not to be exaggerated by the Indian missile test. But first of all, I would like to say that we should not underestimate the power of the Indians as well. Indians have now become a prominent, privileged member of the elite nuclear club after testing the so-called Agni 5. And we must not forget that it was Indira Gandhi back in 1983 who actually suggested that India should have the indigenous nuclear capability when it comes to intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, but it was only in 2012 the Indians are capable of, producing that missile, but it will only be operational in 2016, according to the Defense Research and Development Organization, which actually carries out all the research. Well, there is a trust deficit between the Chinese and the Indians, and the Chinese, I must say that the Chinese conducted in 2007 a successful a missile which was successful enough to completely destroy outer space satellites. And in 2010 the Chinese were also successful in testing an interceptor missile which could intercept almost any kind of intercontinental ballistic missile. So we should not underestimate any either the Chinese or the Indians in that matter.
When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the Agni 5 and its potential geopolitical impact on the Asian region. What does it mean for India and for China? How will it impact India-Pakistan relations? And will it contribute to destabilizing or stabilizing the region? That's coming up right after the break. Stay with us. You're watching Global Perspectives.